Alright, so we're halfway done with our operations. The next one that we're going to look at is multiplying whole numbers. This comes from section 1.4 of the textbook. Okay, so let's start with some basic information. The first thing we want is our notations. Now the one that you probably all know is the X. We use this in arithmetic, but as we transition into algebra, we're going to start using one of the three other notations listed here, which is the dot or parentheses. Parentheses can be around one or both of the numbers. So some vocabulary that we have the word factor. This is one of the numbers in a multiplication problem. In the above examples, A and B are considered the factors. Now this word will show up again, so make sure that you do know it. The other term that we have is product. Product is the result of multiplying two or more numbers together. In the above example, C is considered the product. This is also a word that you will need to know for later. Some alternative words and phrases that we have that mean multiplication is times. We also have some special ones. Double or twice means multiplying by 2, and triple means multiply by 3. Just like with addition, we have some properties of multiplication. First one is the commutative property. Commutative property says that order does not matter when multiplying two numbers. So A times B is the same thing as B times A. We also have the associative property. The associative property says that grouping doesn't matter when multiplying more than two numbers together. So these are similar to our properties that we saw with addition. Grouping doesn't matter, order doesn't matter, you can multiply these however you want. We also have some special properties that refer to multiplication. We have multiplication property of 1. Anything times 1 is itself. This is not needed for this class, but you will see it later on in your future math classes. We call 1 the multiplicative identity. And the last one that we have is the multiplication property of 0. Anything times 0 is 0. Now, the main thing that I want to point out in order to be successful in this class, if you don't know your multiplication tables by now, please take the time to memorize them. That's going to be the biggest drawback to you if you don't have them memorized. Multiplication tables not only come up when we talk about multiplication, you need to know them for division. We're going to need to know them when we get into fractions. And this is one of the biggest things that holds students back. So if you have not memorized them yet, make sure that you work on this over the course of the semester. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to talk about multiplying by a single digit number. In order to do this, we want to line up vertically with the larger number on top and the smaller number on bottom. We want to move our numbers as far to the right as possible. So starting on the right, we want to multiply each digit of the top number by the bottom number and add a carried digit to the product if necessary. If you have any carrying that needs to be done after that, you're going to carry the digits to the next column if the product is 10 or more. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. So if we look at example A, we have 53 times 4. I'm going to put my larger number on top, my 53, and I'm going to put my smaller number on bottom, or the 4. and we go ahead and start multiplying. 4 times 3 is 12, so I'm going to put my 2 on the bottom. I'm going to carry my 1. 4 times 5 is 20. We add the carried digit, so we get 20 plus 1 is 21. Our final answer is 212. All right, let's step it up just a little bit. B, we have 7 times 2,831. Again, I want to put my larger number on top. My smaller number on bottom. We're going to go ahead and multiply, starting on the right, each digit on top by 7. So we get 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. We bring down the 1, we carry the 2. 7 times 8 is 56. Add the carried digit, we get 56 plus 2 is 58. And then finally, 7 times 2 is 14. We add the carried digit, 14 plus 5 is 19. So our final answer is 19,817. All right, that's example B. And now if we look at example C, we don't need to do any work on this one because remember that any number times 0 is 0. All right, so those are some examples of multiplying by a single digit. The next thing we want to look at is multiplying by multiples of 10, meaning numbers that end in zeros. So there's a shortcut to this. Remember that 0 times anything is 0. I'm not going to actually multiply them. So I'm going to multiply disregarding the zeros on the right side of a number. And when I am done with my multiplication, what I'm going to do is just take all the zeros to the right side of the numbers and add them onto the answer. So let me show you how this works. If we look at example A, 59 times 10, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 1 under the 9, and I'm just going to kind of keep track of my zeros over on the right side. If we go ahead and multiply now, 1 times 9 is 9, 1 times 5 is 5, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring down my 0 into my answer. So we get 590. Same thing for example B. When I set this up, I'm going to set this up as 803. I'm going to put my 1 under the 3. And I'm just going to keep track of my zeros to the right of that. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. And then I bring down my zeros that I have kept on the right side. And we get 803,000. All right, last one. Let's multiply 74 times 100. Even though 100 has more digits, I consider putting 100 on the bottom easier because we're just multiplying by 1. And so I'm going to go ahead and put 74 on top. I'm going to put the 1 under the 4, and then I'm just going to keep my zeros off to the right. If we go ahead and multiply, 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 7 is 7. And I bring down my zeros. So we get 7,400. All right, so now that we've multiplied by essentially 1 and just adding zeros, let's go ahead and step up the difficulty level a little bit and look at some other examples that are not multiplying by 10, 100, 1,000, because we're going to do the same thing. So for example D, I want to multiply 75 times 3,000. Essentially, this boils down to multiplying 75 times 3. And then just adding zeros onto our answer. So if we go ahead and multiply this, we get 3 times 5 is 15. We carry the 1. 3 times 7 is 21. Plus 1 is 22. And then I bring down my zeros into my answer. We get 225,000. Now, not only can we do this if one number ends in zeros, we can do this if both numbers end in zeros. So for this problem, what I want to do is I'm going to multiply 15 times 7. I'm going to keep track of my zeros on the right. If we go ahead and multiply 15 times 7, we get 7 times 5 is 35. Seven times 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10. From there I want to know, okay, how many zeros do I have at the end of my numbers? I have a total of 2. And so that is how many I want to include in my answer. We're going to bring down both zeros. And our final answer is 10,500. All right, let's look at example F. Same idea. The numbers that I want to multiply are 42 and 8. I'm going to keep track of my zeros on the right side. If we go ahead and multiply this, we get 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 4 is 32, plus 1 is 33. And then how many zeros do I have at the end of the numbers? We have a total of 3, so we are going to add 3 zeros into our answer, and we get 336,000. All right, that takes care of multiplying by multiples of 10. You can go ahead and multiply them regularly, but this is a trick that will kind of help you keep track of what's going on. I recommend using it, as it means that you have to multiply less than you usually would. Okay, so that's the first part of multiplication of whole numbers. So in the next section, we're going to go ahead and expand into 2-digit numbers and more. So let's go ahead and look at that now. Go ahead and move on to the next presentation.